The asphalt shimmered like liquid mercury under the August sun as I pulled into the remote state park, 40 miles from our apartment in downtown Phoenix. My husband Jake sat in the passenger seat, scrolling through his phone with that same blank expression he always wore. God, he was boring. "This is nice, Zoe," he said, looking up at the desert landscape dotted with hiking trails. "I didn't know you were into nature stuff now." I forced a smile, my heart racing with anticipation. Marina and Tiana were going to love this. The group chat had been buzzing all week about my plan to teach my helpless husband a lesson. Jake worked as a superintendent for some run-down apartment complex downtown, basically a glorified janitor, and acted like he was too good for adventure. "I thought we could use some quality time," I lied, already reaching for my phone to start recording. "Why don't you check out that trail marker over there while I get the picnic stuff?" Jake shrugged and walked toward the wooden sign, his khaki shorts and polo shirt making him look even more pathetic against the rugged backdrop. Perfect. I hit record on my phone, making sure to get a good angle. "Hey everyone," I whispered to the camera, "about to show you what happens when you marry a man who can't even change a light bulb without calling maintenance." I giggled, watching Jake squint at the trail map. "Watch this," I called out to him. "Jake, I forgot something in the car. Be right back." He waved without turning around, completely absorbed in reading about desert wildlife or whatever. Typical. I jogged back to my silver Honda Civic, tossed my phone on the passenger seat, and started the engine. Through the windshield, I could see Jake still standing there like a lost tourist. My phone buzzed with messages from the group chat. Marina: "OMG, are you really doing this?" Tiana: "Girl, yes. Teach that man some independence." Dax: "Can't wait to see the video, babe." The last message made my stomach flutter. Dax was my trainer at Elite Fitness, and lately, our sessions had been getting pretty intense, and not just the workouts. His encouragement meant everything to me. Finally, someone who appreciated my bold side. I backed out of the parking space and drove toward the exit, my hands trembling with excitement and nerves. In my rearview mirror, Jake was just a tiny figure against the vast desert. He'd probably panic and call me in 5 minutes, begging me to come back. Then I'd return, like the hero, and we'd have a good laugh about his helplessness. The park ranger at the exit booth smiled as I approached. "Leaving already? Your husband's still back there?" "Oh, he's fine," I said, laughing a little too loudly. "Just giving him some alone time to figure things out. He needs to learn some independence, you know." The ranger, a weathered woman in her 50s, gave me a strange look but waved me through. I immediately grabbed my phone and switched to the front camera. "Okay, guys, mission accomplished," I said, filming myself as I drove. Jake is officially stranded 40 miles from home with no car, no water, and probably no clue which way is north. Let's see how long it takes Mr. Helpless to call Mommy for a rescue. I posted the video to my Instagram story and the group chat simultaneously. Within minutes, the comments started flooding in. "Savage. He's gonna be so mad. This is hilarious. Can't wait for part 2. Your husband is about to learn what real life looks like." I screenshot every comment, my ego inflating with each laugh cry emoji. This was exactly the validation I'd been craving. For months, I'd felt invisible in my marriage, going through the motions with a man who seemed content with his mediocre job and quiet lifestyle. But now I felt powerful, interesting, worth watching. 20 minutes into the drive home, my phone rang. Jake's name flashed on the screen, and I let it go to voicemail, giggling. He called 2 more times before I finally answered. "Zoe, where did you go?" His voice was calm, which annoyed me. I wanted panic, desperation, maybe some begging. "Oh, hey, babe. Sorry, I had to run back to town for something. Emergency at work. You're good to hang out there for a while, right?" "Work? It's Saturday, and you don't work weekends. Zoe, what's going on?" "Nothing's going on. God, you're so paranoid. Just enjoy the nature or whatever. I'll be back, eventually." I hung up before he could respond, and immediately switched my phone to airplane mode. The group chat was going crazy. Marina: "Did he call yet?" Tiana: "Please tell me you're recording his meltdown." Dax: "You're incredible. Most women wouldn't have the guts." That last message from Dax made my cheeks burn. We'd been flirting for weeks, and I could feel something building between us. He made me feel alive in ways Jake never had. When Dax looked at me, I felt like a goddess. When Jake looked at me, I felt like furniture. I drove straight to Elite Fitness, where Dax was finishing up with a client. He spotted me through the glass and flashed that perfect smile that made my knees weak. At 31, he was 3 years younger than me, but infinitely more exciting than my boring husband. "There's my rebel," he said, wrapping me in a hug that lasted just a beat too long. "How'd it go?" "See for yourself," I said, showing him the video. We huddled together on the gym couch, his arm around my shoulders as we watched my masterpiece. "Damn, Zoe, you really left him out there?" Dax's eyes were wide with admiration. "That's cold. I love it." "He needs to learn he can't just coast through life expecting everyone else to handle everything," I said, leaning into Dax's warmth. "Maybe this will wake him up." "Or maybe it'll show you what you've been missing," Dax said quietly, his fingers tracing patterns on my shoulder. We spent the next hour at the gym, working out and talking about everything except Jake. For the first time in months, I felt genuinely happy. Dax made me laugh, challenged me, saw me as more than just a wife going through the motions. By evening, my phone had exploded with notifications. The video had been shared dozens of times, and my Instagram story had more views than anything I'd ever posted. I felt like a celebrity. But Jake hadn't called again. "That's weird," I told Marina over FaceTime that night. "I thought he'd be blowing up my phone by now." "Maybe he's sulking," Marina suggested. "You know how men get when their pride is hurt. He's probably sitting in some air-conditioned visitor center, waiting for you to come crawling back with apologies." "Right," I agreed, though something felt off. "He's trying to make me feel guilty. Well, joke's on him. I'm not apologizing for teaching him a life lesson." That night, I slept better than I had in weeks. Tomorrow, I'd drive back to the park, collect my properly humbled husband, and we'd have a good laugh about his little adventure. Maybe this would be the wake-up call our marriage needed. I had no idea that Jake hadn't spent the night sulking in an air-conditioned building. I had no idea he was already halfway home, walking through the desert with the methodical precision of someone who'd done this before. And I definitely had no idea that he was documenting every single step of his journey, along with every cruel comment, every mocking laugh, and every piece of evidence that would soon turn my perfect prank into the biggest mistake of my life. My phone buzzed with one last message from Dax. "Can't wait to see what you do next, beautiful." I fell asleep smiling, completely unaware that my husband was already planning exactly what would happen next. I woke up Sunday morning feeling like a queen. My phone showed 47 new Instagram notifications, and the group chat had been active all night with people sharing screenshots and adding their own commentary to my prank video. Tiana: "Girl, you broke the internet. This is legendary." Marina: "My coworkers are obsessed with this story. You're famous." Even people I barely knew were sliding into my DMs with laughing emojis and fire symbols. For the first time in years, I felt relevant, interesting, worth talking about. I made coffee and scrolled through the comments, screenshotting my favorites. This was definitely going in my social media portfolio. I'd been trying to build my personal brand as a lifestyle influencer, and this was exactly the kind of viral content that could launch my career. Around 10 a.m., my mother-in-law Ruth called. I almost didn't answer. Jake's mom had never been my biggest fan, but curiosity got the better of me. "Zoe, where's Jake? I've been trying to reach him since yesterday evening." "Oh, he's busy," I said vaguely. "We went on a little adventure yesterday. He's probably still sleeping off all that fresh air and exercise." "Adventure?" Ruth's voice sharpened. What kind of adventure? Jake mentioned you two were going on a picnic, but that was yesterday morning. I felt a flicker of irritation. Why was everyone so concerned about Jake's whereabouts? He was a grown man, not a child. Ruth, he's fine. We just extended our trip a little. You know how it is with spontaneous romantic getaways. I forced a laugh. I'm sure he'll call you later. There was a long pause. Zoe, Jake's phone has been going straight to voicemail since yesterday afternoon. That's not like him. Where exactly did you go? Look, I really can't talk right now. I'm sure Jake will explain everything when he's ready. I hung up before she could ask more questions, but Ruth's call had planted a seed of unease. I tried calling Jake, and sure enough, his phone went straight to voicemail. The automated message played in that generic robot voice. The number you have dialed is not available. Please try again later. Weird. Jake's phone was always charged and always on. He was obsessive about staying reachable for work emergencies at the apartment complex. I pushed the worry aside and headed to Elite Fitness for my regular Sunday session with Dax. The gym was busy with the weekend crowd, and I felt eyes on me as I walked in. A few people nodded and smiled. Clearly they'd seen the video. There's my viral sensation, Dax said, greeting me with that devastating smile. How's it feel to be internet famous? Pretty amazing, I admitted, following him to the private training room. I had no idea it would blow up like this. Oh, it's definitely blown up. Check this out. Dax showed me his phone. My video had been reposted to some fitness influencer's account with the caption, "When your wife finally stops enabling your lazy husband." 15,000 views on this repost alone, Dax said admiringly. You've tapped into something here, Zoe. People are hungry for this kind of authentic, no-bullshit content. We started our workout, but I kept getting distracted by notifications on my phone. More shares, more comments, more people discovering my moment of genius. It was intoxicating. So what's the plan for today? Dax asked, as I struggled through a set of squats. Going back to collect your husband? Eventually, I said between reps. Let him sweat it out a little longer. Maybe he'll appreciate me more after a night in the wilderness. Dax chuckled. You're ruthless. I love that about you. His hand brushed mine as he helped me with the weights, and electricity shot through my body. This was what I'd been missing. Excitement, attraction, the thrill of being desired by someone who actually saw me. Dax, I started, but my phone rang loudly, interrupting the moment. Ruth again. I really need to take this, I told Dax, stepping outside the training room. Zoe, I'm worried about Jake. Ruth's voice was tight with anxiety. I drove by your apartment this morning, and his truck isn't there. His phone is still dead. Where did you take him yesterday? Ruth, you're being dramatic. Jake is a grown man who can take care of himself. That's just it. Jake always takes care of himself, and everyone else. He's never unreachable like this. Something's wrong. I felt a stab of genuine worry, but I pushed it down. Fine. If it'll make you feel better, I'll drive out and check on him. But I'm telling you, he's probably just pouting because his pride got hurt. Drive out where, Zoe? Where exactly did you leave my son? The way she said leave made my stomach clench. We went to Desert Vista State Park, about 40 miles north. Jake wanted to do some hiking. 40 miles? In this heat? Zoe, it's supposed to hit 112 degrees today. He has water, I lied, and there are facilities at the park. He's not actually lost in the wilderness, Ruth. He's probably sitting in the visitor center right now, being stubborn. But even as I said it, I remembered that the visitor center had been closed for renovations. There was just a small ranger booth at the entrance, and most of the park was undeveloped desert trails. I'm driving out there, Ruth said firmly. If Jake is hurt or... No, I said quickly. I mean, that's not necessary. I'll go get him right now. I was planning to anyway. This is between me and my husband, Ruth. I hung up and stood in the gym hallway, my heart pounding. Through the glass, I could see Dax setting up equipment for our next exercise. his muscles flexing under his fitted shirt. Everything about this situation was spiraling away from my carefully planned narrative. Back in the training room, I tried to focus on the workout, but my mind kept wandering to Jake. Where was he sleeping last night? The park didn't have overnight camping facilities. Maybe he'd walked to the main road and hitched a ride to town. "You seem distracted," Dax observed, spotting me on the bench press. "Everything okay?" "Just family drama," I said, pushing the barbell up with shaking arms. "My mother-in-law is freaking out because Jake's phone is dead." "Dead phone in the middle of nowhere. That's not great." Dax's expression shifted slightly. "How far out did you leave him exactly?" 40 miles, but there are trails and stuff. He's not actually stranded." Dax was quiet for a moment, and I caught something in his expression. Was that concern? Doubt? 40 miles is pretty far, Zoe, especially in this heat. "He'll be fine," I said firmly. "Jake's tougher than he looks." But was he? I realized I didn't actually know much about Jake's physical capabilities. He worked maintenance at an apartment complex, which involved some manual labor, but I'd never seen him do anything particularly athletic or outdoorsy. What if he really was in trouble? "I should probably go check on him," I admitted reluctantly. "Yeah, probably a good idea," Dax agreed, but his tone had cooled noticeably. "Let me know how it goes." I drove toward Desert Vista State Park with growing anxiety, my viral high fading with each mile. The desert stretched endlessly on both sides of the highway, shimmering with heat waves that made the landscape look like a mirage. How had Jake spent the night out here? At the park entrance, the same ranger from yesterday was on duty. She recognized me immediately. "Back for your husband?" she asked with a knowing look. "Yes, is he... Did you see him this morning?" "Haven't seen him since you left him yesterday," the ranger said carefully. "That was quite a joke you were playing." My cheeks burned. "It wasn't... it was just supposed to be funny. Where would he have gone?" "Well, if he was smart, he would have started walking toward the main road before dark. It's about 15 miles to the nearest gas station from here. But in this heat..." She shook her head. "I hope he had water." 15 miles. On foot, in 100-degree heat, with no water. Suddenly, my brilliant prank didn't seem quite so hilarious. I drove through the park, to the spot where I'd left Jake, my hands gripping the steering wheel. The trail marker stood empty, no sign of my husband anywhere. I got out and called his name, my voice echoing across the desert silence. Nothing. I tried his phone again, straight to voicemail. For the first time since this whole thing started, real fear crept into my chest. What if Jake was seriously hurt? What if he'd gotten lost, dehydrated, bitten by a snake? What if my perfect prank had turned into something much worse? I called Marina, my voice shaking. "Marina, I can't find Jake. He's not at the park, his phone is dead, and nobody's seen him since yesterday." "Okay, don't panic," Marina said, though she sounded worried too. "Maybe he got a ride back to town. Check with the police. See if anyone reported picking up a stranded hiker." "The police?" My heart sank. I can't call the police. They'll want to know why he was stranded in the first place. "Zoe, if Jake is really missing, you have to report it. This isn't about your video anymore." She was right. I drove to the nearest police station and filed a missing person report, my story carefully edited to make it sound like Jake had wandered off during our romantic picnic. The officer taking the report was professional, but asked pointed questions about the timeline that made me sweat. "So your husband went for a walk around noon yesterday, and you haven't seen him since?" Officer Martinez asked, typing notes. "Right. I thought he'd come back to the car, but when I went looking for him, he was gone." "And you waited until today to report this because..." "I thought he might have gotten a ride back to town. Sometimes Jake likes to surprise me." The lies felt thick in my throat. Officer Martinez studied me for a long moment. "Ma'am, we'll start looking into this, but I have to ask, is everything okay at home? Any marital problems, financial stress, reasons your husband might want to disappear for a while?" "No, nothing like that. We're very happy." But even as I said it, I thought about Dax's hands on my shoulders, the way I'd been pulling away from Jake for months, the cruel comments I'd made in the video that was still circulating online. Maybe we weren't as happy as I wanted to believe. That night, I lay in our empty bed, staring at my phone. The video had over 1,000 views now, but the comments were starting to shift. Mixed in with the laughing emojis were concerned faces and questions. Wait, did he actually make it home okay? This seems kind of mean. 40 miles in the desert? That's actually dangerous. I started deleting the negative comments, but they kept coming. Someone had shared the video to a hiking forum, and those people were not amused. This is spousal abuse. I hope she gets charged with reckless endangerment. That woman just tried to kill her husband for internet points. My perfect viral moment was turning into a nightmare, and Jake was still missing. At midnight, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Your husband is safe. He'll be in touch soon. Delete the video. My blood turned to ice. Who was this? How did they know about Jake? I tried calling the number, but it went straight to a generic voicemail. I stared at the message, my hands shaking. Jake was safe. That was good news. But something about the tone of that text, cold, authoritative, almost threatening, made me think that maybe safe didn't mean what I hoped it meant. Maybe safe meant Jake was alive and well, and planning something that would make my viral prank look like child's play. Monday morning brought the knock I'd been dreading. I opened my apartment door to find Officer Martinez standing in the hallway with a manila envelope and an expression that made my stomach drop. Mrs. Gresham, we need to talk. I let him in, my hands trembling as I poured coffee I didn't want. Through the kitchen window, I could see Jake's empty parking space, a constant reminder of how badly I'd miscalculated. We found your husband, Officer Martinez said, settling into our dining chair. He's alive and well. Relief flooded through me so intensely I had to sit down. Oh, thank God. Where was he? Is he okay? He walked 15 miles to a truck stop on Highway 60, got a ride back to town with a long-haul driver named Bill Morrison. Mr. Morrison's dashcam footage shows your husband boarding his truck at approximately 11 p.m. Saturday night. I nodded, trying to look appropriately concerned rather than calculating. That's wonderful. When can I see him? Officer Martinez opened the manila envelope and pulled out several printed screenshots. My heart stopped. They were images from my Instagram story. The video of me laughing in the car, the comments from my friends, even the gym selfie I'd posted later with Dax. Mrs. Gresham, your husband came to see us this morning. He had some interesting things to show us. The screenshots were laid out like evidence in a crime scene. My own words stared back at me. Jake is officially stranded 40 miles from home with no car, no water, and probably no clue which way is north. Let's see how long it takes Mr. Helpless to call Mommy for a rescue. This changes the nature of our investigation, Officer Martinez continued. What you initially reported as a missing person case appears to have been intentional abandonment. It was just a joke, I said weakly. A prank between husband and wife. Jake knows I didn't mean any harm. Ma'am, abandoning someone in extreme heat without water or transportation isn't a prank. In Arizona, it can be considered reckless endangerment. Your husband was treated for dehydration at an urgent care clinic yesterday evening. My mouth went dry. Treated for dehydration. He walked 15 miles in 110-degree heat. He could have died, Mrs. Gresham. The officer stood up, leaving the screenshots on my table. Your husband has declined to press criminal charges at this time, but I want you to understand the seriousness of what happened here. This investigation remains open. After he left, I sat staring at the evidence of my own stupidity. The screenshots looked so much worse in black and white, stripped of the giggly context I'd created. The comments from my friends seemed vicious rather than playful. And that gym selfie with Dax. My phone rang. Jake's name on the screen. Jake, oh my God, I've been so worried. Are you okay? Where are you? I'm fine, Zoe. His voice was calm, almost eerily so. We need to talk. Yes, absolutely. Come home. I'll explain everything. It was just supposed to be funny, but it got out of hand and I'm not coming home. The words hit me like a physical blow. What do you mean? Jake, where are you staying? That's not important right now. What's important is that we discuss the terms of our divorce. Divorce? I laughed, but it came out shrill and desperate. Jake, don't be ridiculous. You're upset and you have every right to be, but we can work through this. Marriage counseling, whatever you want. I've already filed the paperwork, Zoe. You'll be served later today. The line went dead. I called back immediately, but his phone was off again. Panic clawed at my chest as I paced the apartment, trying to make sense of what had just happened. Jake wanted a divorce. Over a prank. It seemed like such an extreme overreaction. My phone buzzed with a text from Dax. Saw the news, you okay? What news? I Googled my name and felt the world tilt sideways. The local news website had picked up the story. Phoenix woman under investigation for abandoning husband in desert as prank. My Instagram video was embedded in the article, along with quotes from anonymous sources describing the incident as spousal abuse disguised as humor. The comments section was brutal. This woman is a psychopath. I hope her husband takes her for everything in the divorce. She belongs in jail. I called in sick to work, spending the morning frantically trying to control the narrative. I deleted the original video from my Instagram, but it had already been downloaded and reshared dozens of times. I couldn't put the genie back in the bottle. Around noon, I was served with divorce papers in the most humiliating way possible. I was at Elite Fitness, trying to find some comfort in Dax's presence, when a man in a cheap suit walked into the gym calling my name. The entire workout floor went silent as he handed me a thick envelope. Zoe Gresham, you've been served. Dax stepped back from me like I was radioactive. Other gym members pulled out their phones, no doubt recording my public humiliation for their own social media feeds. Mom, you need to sign here acknowledging receipt, the process server said loudly enough for everyone to hear. I signed with shaking hands, my face burning with embarrassment. The moment the server left, conversations resumed in hushed whispers. I could feel every eye in the gym watching me. This is insane, I told Dax, ripping open the envelope. Jake's lost his mind. But as I read through the legal documents, my confidence evaporated. This wasn't some hastily filed emotional response. The paperwork was thorough, professional, and devastating. Jake was seeking divorce on grounds of cruelty, with detailed exhibits that made my blood run cold. Exhibit A, screenshots of my social media posts, including the desert video, and my gym selfie with Dax. Exhibit B, bank records showing I'd withdrawn $3,000 from our joint account the week before the prank, money I'd spent on new clothes and personal training sessions. Exhibit C, text messages between me and Dax that I didn't even remember sending, including one where I'd complained about being stuck with a boring husband who doesn't appreciate me. Exhibit D, medical records from Jake's urgent care visit, documenting severe dehydration and heat exhaustion. Holy shit, I whispered, sinking onto a bench. How did he get all this? Dax was reading over my shoulder, his expression growing more concerned by the page. Zoe, some of these texts. Did you really say all this stuff about Jake? I was venting. Everyone complains about their spouse sometimes. It doesn't mean anything. But even as I said it, I could see doubt creeping into Dax's eyes. The flirty, confident woman he'd been attracted to was being replaced by someone who looked increasingly unstable and vindictive. Maybe I should go, Dax said, glancing around the gym nervously. This is getting pretty heavy and I don't want to get dragged into your legal stuff. Dragged into it? Dax, you encouraged me. You said I was brave for standing up to Jake. I thought you were talking about having a conversation, not abandoning him in the desert. Dax's voice rose, attracting more stares. Jesus, Zoe, the guy could have died. He walked away, leaving me sitting alone with the divorce papers and a growing audience of gym members pretending to work out while actually watching my life implode. I drove home in a daze, the legal documents scattered across my passenger seat like evidence of my own stupidity. How had Jake assembled all this so quickly? The man I'd dismissed as helpless and boring had somehow orchestrated a devastating counterattack in less than 48 hours. At home, I found my locks had been changed. A note taped to the door explained that Jake had obtained a temporary restraining order, barring me from the apartment we'd shared for 3 years. My belongings would be packed and made available for pickup at a storage facility. I called my lawyer, well, our lawyer, since Jake and I had used the same firm for our wills and house documents. The receptionist's voice was chilly when she recognized my name. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Gresham, but Mr. Patterson can't represent you in this matter. Conflict of interest. He's already been retained by your husband." Jake had thought of everything. I spent that night in a hotel room, scrolling through social media and watching my reputation disintegrate in real time. The story had gone national, picked up by morning shows and lifestyle blogs as an example of social media pranks gone wrong. My face was everywhere, frozen in that moment of cruel laughter as I described leaving my husband stranded. The comments were universally harsh. "This woman is evil. I hope she loses everything in the divorce. Jake should sue her for attempted murder." My own friends were distancing themselves. Marina had deleted all her supportive comments from the original post. Tiana had posted a long statement about not condoning dangerous behavior and learning from mistakes. Even my parents had called, their voices tight with disappointment and concern. "Zoe, what were you thinking?" my mother asked. "The whole family is seeing this online. Your aunt called me crying, asking if you'd had some kind of breakdown." "It was supposed to be funny, Mom. It was just a joke that got blown out of proportion." "Honey, jokes don't land people in the hospital with dehydration." That night, I got a call from my boss at the corporate compliance firm where I worked. My stomach sank when I saw her name on the caller ID. "Zoe, I'm calling about the situation that's been brought to our attention. We've seen the news coverage and the social media posts." "Sandra, I can explain. This is a personal matter that has nothing to do with my work performance." "I'm afraid it does. Our clients trust us to demonstrate sound judgment and ethical behavior. The video of you abandoning your husband has raised serious concerns about your decision-making capabilities." "You're firing me? Over a marital dispute?" "We're placing you on unpaid administrative leave pending a full review. Given the nature of our business, ensuring corporate compliance with ethical standards, we can't have someone on staff who's under investigation for reckless endangerment." The call ended, and I threw my phone across the hotel room. Everything was falling apart. My marriage, my job, my reputation, my friends, all destroyed by a single moment of cruel impulse. But the worst was yet to come. The next morning, I woke up to find a new video circulating online. Security footage from the truck stop where Jake had been picked up, showing him walking out of the desert, clearly exhausted and dehydrated. The timestamp showed 10:47 p.m., nearly 11 hours after I'd abandoned him. But that wasn't the devastating part. The devastating part was the audio that had been enhanced and cleaned up. Jake talking to the truck driver who'd given him a ride. My wife left me out there as a joke, posted it online for her friends to laugh at, said I was too useless to find my way home. "Jesus, son, 40 miles in this heat. That's not a joke. That's attempted murder." "I know. I've got it all documented. Screenshots, bank records, text messages. She's been planning to leave me for weeks, draining our accounts, carrying on with her personal trainer. This was just her way of humiliating me first." "What are you going to do?" "Show her what happens when you underestimate someone." The video ended there, but the implication was clear. Jake hadn't just survived my prank. He'd been planning his revenge every step of those 15 miles through the desert. And I was about to find out exactly what that revenge looked like. The courthouse on Thursday morning was a gauntlet of humiliation I never could have imagined. Local news crews had gotten wind of the divorce hearing, and my desert prank had become a cautionary tale about social media culture gone wrong. I walked through a crowd of reporters shouting questions. "Mrs. Gresham, do you regret abandoning your husband? Was this premeditated abuse or a prank gone wrong? How do you respond to calls for criminal charges?" My new lawyer, an overpriced attorney named David Chen, who specialized in damage control, guided me through the chaos. "Don't say anything," he muttered. "This is already bad enough." Inside the courtroom, I got my first look at Jake since the desert incident. He sat at the plaintiff's table with his attorney, wearing a crisp navy suit I'd never seen before. He looked different, more confident, more substantial. The quiet maintenance worker I'd dismissed as boring had been replaced by someone who commanded attention. His lawyer was a shark, Patricia Williams, known for destroying unfaithful spouses in high-profile divorces. The fact that Jake could afford her services should have been my first clue that I'd underestimated more than just his survival skills. "Your Honor," Patricia began, "this case represents one of the most egregious examples of spousal cruelty and reckless endangerment we've seen. The defendant didn't just abandon my client, she filmed it, mocked him publicly, and celebrated his suffering for social media entertainment. She activated a large screen that displayed my Instagram video in all its cringeworthy glory. Hearing my own voice in the formal courtroom setting made me want to disappear into the floor. Jake is officially stranded 40 miles from home, with no car, no water, and probably no clue which way is north. Let's see how long it takes Mr. Helpless to call Mommy for a rescue." The judge, a stern woman in her 60s, watched the video with an expression of barely contained disgust. When it finished, she turned to me with eyes like ice. "Mrs. Gresham, did you create and post this video?" "Yes, Your Honor, but..." "Did you intentionally abandon your husband in a remote desert location without transportation or water?" My lawyer squeezed my arm in warning, but I had to respond. "It was meant to be a harmless prank, Your Honor. I never intended for anyone to get hurt." "I see. And how long did you plan to leave him there?" The question hung in the air like a trap. The truth was, I hadn't really planned anything beyond the initial video. I'd been so caught up in the social media response that I'd forgotten there was supposed to be a second act to my prank. I was going to go back for him that evening. But you didn't. No, Your Honor. I got distracted. The judge's voice could have frozen water. "You got distracted while your husband walked 15 miles through extreme heat, suffering severe dehydration that required medical treatment." Patricia Williams stood up. "Your Honor, if I may present the evidence we've compiled." What followed was the most humiliating hour of my life. Patricia methodically destroyed my character with surgical precision, using my own words and actions as weapons. First, the financial evidence. Bank records showing I'd been secretly draining our joint accounts for weeks, spending thousands on personal training, new clothes, and spa treatments while Jake paid all our household expenses from his modest salary. Then, the text messages between me and Dax, presented in chronological order to show the progression of our emotional affair. Jake is so boring. Sometimes I feel like I'm married to a piece of furniture. I need a man who actually appreciates me. Can't wait for our private session tomorrow. You make me feel alive in ways I'd forgotten were possible. The final text, sent the morning of the desert incident. About to teach my husband what happens when you take a goddess for granted. Each message was a nail in the coffin of my marriage and my reputation. I could see the court reporter typing frantically, creating a permanent record of my betrayal and cruelty. But Patricia wasn't done. "Your Honor, we'd also like to present testimony from several witnesses who interacted with Mr. Gresham during his ordeal." The first witness was Bill Morrison, the truck driver who'd given Jake a ride home. He was a weathered man in his 50s who spoke with quiet authority about what he'd seen that night. The young man was in bad shape when I found him at the truck stop, Bill testified. Dehydrated, exhausted, but still walking. Said he'd been abandoned by his wife as a joke. In 40 years of driving, I've seen a lot of cruelty, but this was something else. Did Mr. Gresham say anything else about the incident? Patricia asked. He showed me the video on his phone, his wife laughing about leaving him stranded. Said she'd been planning to leave him for weeks, and this was her way of humiliating him first. But you know what impressed me? He wasn't angry, he was calculating, said he was going to handle it the right way, through the courts. The next witness was Dr. Sarah Martinez, from the urgent care clinic where Jake had been treated. Mr. Gresham presented with severe dehydration, heat exhaustion, and blistering on his feet, consistent with long-distance walking in extreme conditions, she testified. His core body temperature was dangerously elevated. If he'd walked much further without treatment, we could have been looking at heat stroke or worse. In your medical opinion, doctor, could this situation have been fatal? Absolutely. Desert exposure in extreme heat kills dozens of people in Arizona every year. Mr. Gresham was lucky to reach help when he did. My lawyer tried to object, to argue that the medical testimony was prejudicial, but the judge overruled him. The evidence was devastating, and we all knew it. Finally, Patricia called Jake to the stand. He walked to the witness box with calm confidence, nothing like the man I'd dismissed as helpless and boring. When he spoke, his voice was steady and clear. Your Honor, I want to be clear about something. My wife didn't just abandon me in the desert. She planned it, filmed it, and celebrated it. She turned my suffering into entertainment for her friends and her lover. Objection, my lawyer called out. Inflammatory language. Overruled. Continue, Mr. Gresham. Jake pulled out a thick binder and set it on the witness stand. I've documented everything, Your Honor. Every social media post, every cruel comment, every financial transaction. My wife has been systematically destroying our marriage while planning her exit strategy. He opened the binder to reveal perfectly organized tabs, social media evidence, financial records, text messages, medical documentation, witness statements. This wasn't a prank gone wrong, Jake continued. This was calculated cruelty by someone who wanted to humiliate me before she left me for another man. She just didn't expect me to survive it with evidence. Patricia walked him through the timeline, and I watched my husband transform before my eyes. The quiet, boring man I'd taken for granted was actually methodical, intelligent, and devastatingly thorough. He documented every aspect of my betrayal with the precision of someone trained in... What? Mr. Gresham, could you tell the court about your background before your current employment? I served 8 years in the Army, Your Honor, military intelligence, specialized in land navigation, survival training, and evidence collection. The courtroom went silent. My blood turned to ice. So, when your wife abandoned you in the desert, you were able to navigate back to safety? Yes, Your Honor. I activated the backup GPS in my watch, documented my route, and made contact with multiple witnesses along the way. I also ensured that all of my wife's social media posts were archived before she could delete them. He'd played me, completely and utterly played me. I'd thought I was pranking a helpless man, but I'd actually been setting myself up for destruction by someone with military training in exactly the skills needed to survive my attack and document my crimes. Your Honor, Patricia said, we're seeking full dissolution of the marriage with prejudice, division of assets weighted toward my client due to the defendant's financial misconduct, and a permanent restraining order based on the documented pattern of abuse and endangerment. The judge looked at me with unconcealed contempt. Mrs. Gresham, do you have anything to say in your defense? I stood on shaking legs, my mind blank. What could I possibly say? That I was sorry, that it was just a joke, that I'd been bored and stupid and cruel. Your Honor, I made a terrible mistake. I never meant for anyone to get hurt. I was unhappy and I made bad choices. But I never wanted Jake to actually suffer. But he did suffer, didn't he, Mrs. Gresham? He suffered while you celebrated. He nearly died while you posted selfies with your lover. The gavel came down like a gunshot. Divorce granted. Mr. Gresham is awarded 70% of marital assets due to the defendant's misconduct and financial abuse. Mrs. Gresham is ordered to pay restitution for medical expenses and legal fees. A permanent restraining order is issued, barring the defendant from contact with the plaintiff. This case is also being referred to the District Attorney's Office for potential criminal charges. I collapsed back into my chair as the courtroom erupted in whispers and camera flashes. Jake stood and shook hands with his lawyer, then walked past me without a glance. At the courthouse steps, reporters swarmed again, but this time they wanted Jake's story. I watched from the shadows as my ex-husband gave a brief, dignified statement. I hope this case serves as a reminder that actions have consequences, especially in the age of social media. What my ex-wife did wasn't a harmless prank. It was attempted murder disguised as entertainment. I'm grateful to be alive, and I hope she gets the help she clearly needs. He walked away, leaving me to face the cameras alone. That night, in my hotel room, I scrolled through social media one last time. The divorce had made national news, with headlines like "Desert Prank Wife Loses Everything in Court" and "Military Vet Outsmarts Abusive Spouse's Deadly Joke." The comments were universally supportive of Jake and condemning of me. Justice served. This woman got exactly what she deserved. Jake is a hero for surviving that psychopath. My phone buzzed with a final text from an unknown number, the same one that had contacted me the night Jake went missing. "You underestimated the wrong man. Enjoy the consequences." I stared at the message, finally understanding that it had been Jake all along. He'd been 3 steps ahead of me from the moment I'd abandoned him in that desert, turning my moment of cruel triumph into the foundation of my complete destruction. I'd wanted to humiliate my useless husband with a viral prank. Instead, I'd handed a trained intelligence operative all the evidence he needed to destroy my life with surgical precision. The video that was supposed to make me internet famous had done exactly that, just not in the way I'd planned. I was famous now, all right. Famous as the woman who tried to murder her husband for social media likes and lost everything when he turned out to be smarter, stronger, and more dangerous than she'd ever imagined.